welcome to Hot Takes Live, the summer edition. And you are joining us on our ops stage. And so I'm super looking forward to all of our speakers today. My name is Joe Eicher. I'm our Director of RevOps Solutions here at Breadcrumbs. So a lot of these topics I'm super excited for. If you guys have questions or comments as our speakers are talking, feel free to throw them into the comment section on the right of the platform. We can definitely bring those up and talk as we go. But I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to bring on our first presenter. His name is Andy Mowat. Andy, welcome to Hot Takes Live. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. Thanks so much. Appreciate the introduction.
Definitely. Super excited for your topic today. Your next CRM is a data warehouse. Interested to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to step out of the screen and let you take over.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Great to see everybody. This topic is intended, at least the title is intended to be a little bit controversial, but I do believe this is where the world is headed. Just as a quick background, I currently am running a company called Gated. We give people back control of their own attention. So I've moved from running RevOps at 3 unicorns to doing Gated, but I always am advising, investing, and just talking to people about the state of RevOps, the state of data. It's just been passionate for me for a long time. I have had some fascinating backgrounds in terms of running a company in Prague and spending a lot of time over in Europe. But at this point in time, I am laser focused the last maybe 15 years on scaling companies up. So let's get into it real quick. At Culture Amp, I got a chance to take a company from, call it 5 million in revenue to about 100 million in revenue over the course of 4 years. As part of that, we built out the modern data stack. Happy to talk more about that. I'm sure other people will. But I think there's terrific articles on that if you're not familiar with what the modern data stack is. But as part of that process, I observed a couple things. One is there were just so many metrics that we couldn't access out of Salesforce, out of HubSpot. One of my favorite is pipeline coverage, right? Normally you can show up and you can talk about what's the pipeline we have, but with pipeline coverage, you can start to talk about how does that compare to other periods in time, how are we ramping pipeline, and you can create that right dialogue between marketing and sales. Number 2 is the flexibility of data architectures. So there's lots, again, questions you just can't answer out of the legacy stack. A great example here was we were selling our second product and we'd asked how long, what's the sales cycle for that? What's the win rate? And because a rep would add a SKU to a renewal op, have a discussion, remove it, you couldn't see that or report on that in Salesforce because opportunities were real time. But the ability to kind of look back at the history of that and analyze it was very powerful. We also saw just at a fundamental level, like even after we had better data, better insights, running the exec and the decisions around go-to-market better with the modern data stack, it didn't actually change the systems that our teams were using. So we didn't make them much more productive. We were just a lot smarter in what we did. And so that's kind of the learning process that I went through at Culture Amp. So how is this informed where I think the world's going? I fundamentally do believe that your next CRM will be a data warehouse. I don't necessarily mean that your reps will log into that, and happy to talk about that in more detail. I've written an article about that on my LinkedIn as well too. But I think what I saw is everybody is constrained by both the architecture of the go-to-market systems, and they're really constrained by the rep. And so if you think about it, when you put the core data model into it's no longer in Salesforce, but it's into a data warehouse, you can do a lot more things that I just described on the previous page. Number 2 is the system your reps log into, it's not going to be Salesforce anymore. I think a great example there is Scratchpad. I've invested in Scratchpad. A lot of us that are running RevOps or sales teams have seen that your reps start using it. It's more flexible. They can be a little bit quicker. I had an entire team come to me and say, hey, we love this tool. So I actually ended up investing in it. But that's just the beginning of what you could do. Imagine if you can roll a UX for your team that's not necessarily locked and loaded with your data model. It becomes a lot more flexible. And then I think there's this entire new breed of systems for go-to-market data, for go-to-market ops, that will be graded. A great example there, I would say, would be Sweep. They take your sales processes, you can design them visually, and then they can push them into your Salesforce. But they can also push them to other places, like a data warehouse as well, too. So if you believe this world is coming, what are some of the things you can do? And I'm assuming different people have different levels of maturity on the data side. But one is just make sure that you've invested in your team's data fluency. I would say at Box, we had a course that anyone in the company could take. And it was called about a 12-week course for SQL. And it brought everybody in the company along with us. So we just had a much more data fluent company. Number two, I say invest in your data stack. There's lots of ways to do this. There's kind of the full modern data stack, which is, frankly, at CultureAmp, it took us about a year to get there. But there are also tools that can help you get there with a little bit less complexity, things like BoostUp or Syncery. And then finally, rethink the metrics that you're holding your team accountable to. We talked about a couple of those, pipeline coverage, but let me give you pipeline coverage is one, sales cycles on renewals is another one. But another one I've always loved is, and we use this at Box because we also had a fairly sophisticated but complex data stack, was how many days before a churn or a contraction happens did the CS rep identify it?